Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we're back in Gardens Awakens Plus, and that is because update 3 is now ready for release. Now, as you can see by the title, we have added fog in this update. But before we jump to that, we are going to cover some of the changes because there are quite a lot of them. The Pale Creeper will now be able to explode a 5x5 rather than a 3x3, so its radius has been increased. This also affects leaves, logs, and also the mushrooms. Now, we've also made a change where if the Pale Creeper was to explode in a Pale Gardens biome, it will no longer convert the land due to the land already being converted. Rather, it will set off this effect, and that particle grants the new foggy effect, which we'll cover later on. Now, as well as this, the Pale Creeper can now also explode the following blocks. It will now explode any mossy block. This is cobblestone or stone bricks, and it will convert these into the pale mossy versions, if they are not within a Pale Garden, that is. So let's quickly just take them over here where we don't have a Pale Garden biome, and if I just place them down in a random order, and then I now have the Creeper explode them all, you'll see that they get converted to the Pale versions. And we did also fix a bug where the Pale Creeper wouldn't convert some blocks' block states. Now, next change comes with a Pale Carved Pumpkin, and this obviously can be obtained by clicking shears on a Pale Pumpkin. And in the last update, we added the ability to get this version. Now, this version has had a texture update to make it match this version a little bit better. But now, when you break both of these, you'll get the stored state. So as you can see, this one grants the one with the creaking eyes. And if I break this one grants the one with the pumpkin eyes. Now, we did also fix a few bugs with the resin torches. Now, these will have the correct particle playing above them, and they will not play a particle when they are turned off. So as you can see, the off ones are not playing a particle, but the ones that are lit are. And if I was to quickly just break this and replace it, you can see the lit one on the ground is now playing a particle. So there's quite a lot of changes to the ancient sprite in this update. The first change is when you give it an item, it will now render the item in its hands, and the item will slowly shrink. We have also moved the particles, so the particles are actually within the block rather than the ancient sprite. We have also updated the eating sound, and we have fixed the bug where the ancient sprite sometimes wouldn't play particles or a sound. Now, the next change we've made in this update is that the following items can now be composted. This is the open and closed ice shrooms. Now, one thing to note, the stable versions cannot be composted. You can now also compost pale pumpkin seeds, pale pumpkin pie, twilight bushes, the night spore, the pale mushroom blocks, the creaking mushroom blocks, and then also pale pumpkins and carved pale pumpkins. Now, the next set of changes we're going to cover is to the creaking golem. Now, this has been updated on how it spawns. It now spawns with a pale oak log, a creaking heart, and then a carved pale pumpkin. Now, the next change we have made is when you right click them with a resin rune, that now binds it to a player. So, for example, this creaking is bound to me. Now, it doesn't make it defend you any more than if you was to spawn it. What this does, if you missed the last update, which I do recommend go checking out if you did, this makes it so it's invincible to damage. Now, in the prior update, it was for 10 minutes, but in this update, we've changed that, and it's now invincible until I die. And this is once again because I clicked the rune on it. So basically, clicking a rune binds it to you, so you are basically the creaking golem's heart. Now, if I was to quickly just set my spawn here, so let's quickly just do that, you can see it has this orange glow. If I was to now kill myself, let's quickly just do that. You can see I've now spawned, and it's no longer glowing because I died. And we have also updated the way to get the resin runes. They're now obtained from the ancient sprite rather than the pale creeper. Now, a change that was made in version 2, but we forgot to mention, is we have disabled sleeping in the Pale Garden. If you try to sleep, you can see there is an unknown presence in the Pale Garden, and you cannot sleep. Now, we know this feature is probably going to be disliked by some players, so we have added a game rule to disable it. And the game rule is right here, disable Pale Garden sleeping. By default, this is set to true, but you can disable it if you would like. Now, let's start on some of the new stuff within this update. The first thing, the resin pulsar has been slightly updated. When this is disabled, it will now let off pale moth particles rather than the resin ones, which you can see scattered around. They are basically the same texture, just with a grayed out version. And we've also updated the block state, so it's now called particles. So as you can see, by clicking this disables it on and off. So how this works, to get the resin moth particles, you need to build a 3x3 base below, which you can see I'm now getting the orange particles. And to get the pale versions, you just need to have nothing below. And you can see by having this disabled, I'm now getting the pale moth. Now, two things to note about these: they will now glow in the dark, both versions, and also the creaking eyes that are let off by the night spore will now also glow in the dark as well. Now, next thing in this update is the resin campfire, and this is a campfire. It works exactly the same as a normal one. The only difference is that this one cannot be lit or unlit. The way it gets lit is by the day and night cycle. So as you can see, it is nighttime, so the campfire is lit. As soon as the time gets set to daytime, you'll see they become unlit. And these are going to be kind of useful if you want signals. So of a nighttime, if you want a signal going up, or you only want campfires to be lit at night, you can basically use these without any redstone. They do still cook food if you place food on them, but only at night time. Now, the next new feature in this update is 4 new banner patterns. We have the Sprite, we have the Watcher Basic, we have the Watcher, and we have the Creep. Now, all 4 of these can currently be gotten from the Ancient Sprite, but this could change in a future update. So as you can see, this is what they look like. This one right here is the Watcher Basic. It's just the eyes, and I've noticed they are not centered. That will be fixed. We then also have the Watcher, which is the eyes more in the creaking pattern. We then have the Creak, which is just a very basic creaking head. And then we have the Sprite, which is an outline of the Ancient Sprite. Alongside the banner patterns, there is one new armor trim within this update. This can once again be gotten from the Ancient Sprite. Here is what it looks like on a diamond set of armor. It's basically themed around the pale moss and things like that. Now, all of these have the same rarity from the Ancient Sprite. They are rarer than any basic item. Now, one of my favourite features in this update is data-driven variants. Now, Minecraft, as you know, have been working on making mobs data-driven. They added wolves, and they are now also adding pigs in the next update. Well, we have taken inspiration from that, and we have given data-driven variants to 2 mobs. First off, the Ancient Sprite. Now, when you are creating your own custom Ancient Sprite variant, I will have a test data pack that you can download. I'll have it linked in the description. So if you want to add your own Ancient Sprite variants, then you can. And once again, the test data pack will help you. All you would need to do is change the files. Now, this is currently the settings you can customize. So the cooldown. This cooldown is when you give a Ancient Sprite an item and it stops eating. It will then start this cooldown, and you'll not be able to give it another creaking heart until this cooldown reaches 0. Now, feeding item. This is the item that you feed the Ancient Sprite, so by default it's going to be creaking heart. Now, the finished eating loot table. This is the loot table the Ancient Sprite has a chance to pull an item from once it's finished eating. Now, by default, this is Ancient Sprite gifts. Now we have takes damage. Can your variant of the Ancient Sprite be damaged when a player or entity hits it? By default, this is false, but you can set it to true. And then we have texture, and this just pulls from the default texture, but once again you can customize all of these options with your own variants. And the second customizable variant we have is the creaking golem. For this, you can customize the reinforced item. By default, this is the resin rune. We then also have spawn chance, which will be the chance it will randomly spawn. And then we have the texture. And this, once again, can all be customized for your variant. So, as of this update, you can now add your own Ancient Sprite variants and also your own Creaking Golem variants without the need to make a mod, which, once again, I will have an example version linked for both of these in the description that you can download if you do want to add your own custom variants. Now, if you do add your own custom variants for either of these mobs, do let us know. Send us screenshots of the variants you made, as we'd be interested to see them. The best place to send them is within my Discord, which once again you can find linked in the description. Now, currently we don't have custom variants for Pale Creepers or the Pale Eye. They'll be coming in a future update. Now, we've also added 2 new potion effects in this update, and this first one is gotten by brewing some awkward potions with a block of resin, and the second one is gotten by brewing awkward potions with a creaking heart. Now, the one that is gotten from resin blocks is called the Potion of Creaking, and this comes in arrow form. It also comes in normal, splash, and lingering. Now, what does the Potion of Creaking do? Well, if a mob was to get this potion effect and that mob was to die, you can also see that it has custom particles, but if this mob was to die, they will spread resin around where they die. It's also another way to farm resin if you don't want to use Creaking Hearts, and the icon for it is pretty cool. Now, the second potion effect that is gotten from Creaking Hearts is Foggy Vision, and this is where the fog effect comes in. I mentioned in a video that I released just after 1.21.4 released that I didn't like the idea that fog would spawn within the Pale Gardens, just because it's limiting on creativity and building. So this is the solution for it. It is a potion effect. Now, you can get the effect in other ways, which we will cover. Now, once again, it does come in arrow form and also splash and lingering. Now, if you was to grant yourself this effect, you will see that it has a custom effect, which you can see right here, and the world basically gets smaller. This is how much you can see when you have the effect. Now, this is all the effect does. It basically just limits your vision. Now, when you are outside of the Pale Garden, it appears like darkness. But if you was to head inside of a Pale Garden, which I am right here, let's now splash myself with it again. You will see it closes down and the fog is the same color as the Pale Garden. So I'm now in a bigger Pale Garden and I've set the time to night. If I now splash myself, you'll see the vision slowly get smaller. And if I now walk into the Pale Garden, the visibility is definitely limited, and I think it's really cool. But once again, it is optional. But I like the idea that it's optional, so if a player wants it, then they can obviously get it by the other sources. So now let me cover how you get the effect inside of survival mode without crafting the actual potion. All you need to do is head into a Pale Garden, and you'll see I will then be granted the effect while I'm in this biome. The minute I leave, the effect will then slowly tick down and vanish. So while you're exploring, you will have the foggy vision effect, but as soon as you leave, it will then obviously go. Now, this isn't optional, and I wanted it to be optional because not everyone likes their vision being decreased, especially when it's in a whole biome. So we have added a new option in accessibility settings called Pale Garden Fog. If you turn this off, by default it will be on. As you can see, it is now off, and I'm within the Pale Garden, and the fog effect is not being applied to me. Now, this should work per player, so if you like it on but your friend doesn't, your friend can disable it within their settings. Now, one thing to note, it only disables it from being granted while in the biome. You can still get it from potions. So for example, if I was to splash myself with this potion, you can see I will still get the effect. Now, the next thing in this update is a new block set. This is dried resin, and you can see it looks like this. This is the clump form, and then you have the dried resin block, you have the slabs and stairs, you also have the bricks, and then you have the slabs, stairs, walls, and chiseled. Now, this works exactly the same as the normal resin. Now, how is this obtained? You can get it from the Ancient Sprite. When you trade with the Ancient Sprite, there is a random chance you can get some dried resin. But you can also get it from a Creaking Heart. Now, this Creaking Heart needs to be natural, so it needs to be placed by natural generation. If you was to break a Creaking Heart and place it back down, it wouldn't be able to grant any resin. But basically, if you break the one that is lit like this, it will drop you the orange resin. And if you break one that is not lit, you'll see it will drop you the brown resin. The Pale Eye has also had an update to make it less like the shulker box. As you can see, this is what the Pale Eye now looks like. It looks pretty much the same as before. But if we set the time to nighttime and the Pale Eye was to open, you'll now see that the top part here just opens up and the eye then pops out, rather than the whole top lifting up exactly like a shulker. This makes it a little bit more unique. And it also tells a bit more of a story, that the eye is living within the block. But anyway, if you did enjoy this video, do leave a like and subscribe, as it does really help out. Let me know what you guys thought of this update. If you have any suggestions or feedback, definitely do let us know. Once again, you can let us know in the comments on this video or within my Discord. But anyway, I'll see you guys in another one very soon. Bye.